We're dealing with the biblical definition of evil. And I think that's what people need to figure out is that, regardless of what you believe out there, regardless if you're a believer or not, these people are believing in something. And their belief system is the anti-Christian belief system. And that's what they're promoting.
Hey, friends, thanks so much for tuning in. Guess what? We have a new guest on the line. You may know his work from YouTube. It's Ron Johnson from Stranger Than Fiction, stfnews.com. And I'm really eager to talk with this guy because he's over the target frequently. We don't have to agree on everything, but we surely do agree on a lot. And Ron's here right now. Ron, how are you?
I'm doing well, sir. Thank you for having me on.
I post your work over at thephaser.com, sometimes even over at SGT Report, and you do really, really interesting work. And so I wanted to have you on to talk about the New World Order, Illuminati, death cult, right? Loaded words, but what is Pizzagate telling us? What is Pedogate telling us? What is spirit cooking telling us?
Well, they're telling us that evil is as evil does, and what we're dealing with is a religion. It's not like the religion that you find in your local town or in your city. It's a different kind of religion. It's the religion of Bohemian Grove. It's the religion of spirit cooking. It's the religion of the Antichrist, to be quite honest with you. And that's what we're dealing with. A lot of people are looking at this and they're trying to piece it all together. But this is really confirming what we've been suspecting for years, that we're dealing with a bunch of Luciferians. And historically speaking, we know that Luciferians are into pedophilia and the like. There's decades of research that links ritualistic satanic sex abuse and that religion. And so all of a sudden, we're actually seeing it, in black and white, in the emails, in the videos, and the like, and there's just no denying the evidence. And so, what it's telling us that we've been vindicated, that what we've been suspecting all these years is in fact what's going on. And it's interesting because, this is at the core of all of the evil that we're up against, whether it be the GMOs, the fluoride, the mandated vaccines, the chemtrails, the false flags, the Gladio B events, the endless wars. All of this stuff is related because these people are practicing a religion, and that religion is evil.
I completely agree with you because my research has vetted out that at the highest levels, if you go down to the very bottom of the rabbit hole, you're going to find that these people are Luciferians. But here's my question for you. If we already know about Jimmy Savile's crimes, right? He was trafficking children to the elite in London. Now we've heard about Sir Edward Heath, accused of the ritual sacrifice of 16 babies, and the child survivors, now grown up, are pointing the finger not only at him, but at their own parents as being part of these satanic cults. If we know about the Franklin cover-up, if we know about the Hampstead cover-up, if we know about Pizzagate and the Podesta emails, how is it that these people with a straight face can still call us crazy and call us tinfoil hat-wearing nuts and call us conspiracy theorists when we want an investigation into what's going on in D.C., right? Pizzagate, the D.C.-centric pedo ring. How is it that these people can get away with it?
Well, they're controlling the narrative. They're controlling the media. They're controlling the prosecutors. They're controlling the investigations. We saw that quite clearly with the Hillary email investigation. When it went up to Congress, you had the FBI stonewalling the investigation. You had the Democrats that weren't really participating in the investigation in Congress, and so they're controlling all of the facets to bring these people into justice. And there's just no way around it. I mean, we've got an orgy of evidence, but we have nowhere to bring it. There's no court that wants to take the case. There's no prosecutor that wants to try the case. And the media doesn't want to cover it. But what we've discovered through the spirit cooking and the Podesta emails is that, in fact, these Luciferians, it's not just the politicians, it's the celebrities, it's the media, and all of these people are in it together like a bunch of Charlie Manson groupies. So basically, we got to keep raising awareness in the independent media in everywhere we can to basically, turn the tide and render the atmosphere as if it was one of rage and outrage, I guess we could say. And I think that's what we need to continue doing, because right now there isn't any way to bring these people to justice with the current situation the way it is. And that's why we got to, drain the swamp. And we got to keep pushing this administration to do what it wants to do. And a lot of the politicians know that this is happening. And there's a lot of good people out there that know that this is happening, just like they know that 9/11 was an inside job. But they need the public support to push everything over the edge so that they can actually go out on a limb and say, here's the evidence. Now let's finally bring this to trial. But that's basically where we're at right now, is that we've got the evidence. Nobody wants to take it because they feel that, the people that would take it feel that the public support isn't there. And so, we just got to do what we're doing here and keep raising awareness on these issues.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And I want to ask you this now. I'm gonna throw out a word here, and it's a very despicable, loaded word. The word is cannibalism. Now, given the research you've done and the reporting you've done about quote-unquote artist Marina Abramovic and her spirit cooking, what is going on, do you think, really, behind the scenes at the private parties, the parties at which the video cameras are not allowed? Because what I'm seeing is a revelation of the means of this Luciferian satanic death cult, not only through spirit cooking and Marina Abramovic, but through the Santa Clara Diet, the new Netflix show. And I'm going to play just a clip of that for you right now. Santa Clara Diet, starring Drew Barrymore.
I do like the way that I feel. I have endless energy and I sleep 2 hours a night. I get so much done.
You eat people.
I know. It's just that I'm so much more confident. I can parallel park in one move now.
Okay, Ron, can you please explain to me how that's funny? Like, are we so far gone as a culture that this tripe could have been pitched to Netflix and Netflix would have said, yeah, this is great, this is so funny, run with it?
Well, I think it's funny because we're seeing a lot more of that kind of genre out there from Hollywood and the like. We have images of Milo bathing in a tub of blood. We've got all sorts of things like that out there. There's a new movie called Raw where they're basically eating people as well, and it seems to be part of their religion. They feel that eating people is something that is excellent for them. But their religion is really the opposite of everything that is common sense and natural and good. And so to these people, it makes sense that eating other people is a good idea. Just like to them, it makes sense that raping and molesting children is a good idea. Just like to them, it seems to make sense to wage endless wars. And so they're basically practicing the opposite of what is good. And to them, evil is good and good is evil. And that's what we're seeing. They're attacking everything: the food, the water, the air, the family. They don't stop. They have no limits. And this is why they're pushing it. They keep wanting to move the Overton window when it comes to things like that, as well as crimes against children. Like with Milo saying, "Oh, look, 13-year-olds," and Bill Maher, "Oh, 13-year-olds." And there's another movie that just came out too. It was like Fist Fight or something like that with Ice-T or Ice Cube, and in that movie, they're like school teachers, and they're like, "Oh yeah, let's have sex with the students." They're actually saying that in the movie. They're pushing this everywhere, as well as the cannibalism, as well as the witchcraft. We saw that in how many different movies, The Craft and the like. They're pushing all of this mystic stuff. Have you seen children's books lately? It's all like magicians. It's all like Harry Potter. It's all mystic stuff. I mean, they're basically trying to, they're basically attacking people, mind, body, and soul. And we're dealing with the biblical definition of evil. And I think that's what people need to figure out, is that regardless of what you believe out there, regardless if you're a believer or not, these people are believing in something, and their belief system is the anti-Christian belief system, and that's what they're promoting. And so so they're just trying to transform the society into Sodom and Gomorrah out there, quite literally.
Yeah.
And and that includes cannibalism. It includes child molestation. It includes terraforming the planet. So there's just no limits to their madness. But I think people need to recognize what's going on for what it is, and stand up for what you believe in. Because right now they're pitching, they're pitching their belief system. They're selling it. They're doing product placement everywhere. They're recruiting. They've come out in the open, and they're not hiding anymore. And I'm very suspicious about how all of this information really got out in the first place, because I think that they want us talking about it. I think they want us. They want to promote it. Just like they're promoting it in the movies. And I think that this is why we're also seeing it in the halftime shows, the Illuminati halftime shows, the Super Bowl shows, and so on and so forth. They are promoting their religion and they're recruiting. And the way that they do it is by having people talk about it. But we need to basically, pick and choose what is the worst of the worst that they're trying to present and make people realize, do you want to be a part of this cult that is raping and molesting children? Do you want to be part of this cult that is eating other people? Do you want to be part of this cult that wants to, transform the world, terraform the world, and basically wipe out humanity in their post-human agenda? Because we have to remember, while we're talking about all the little things that they could have us talking about through the controlled media, we're not talking about the looming Skynet situation that's about to hit us. We're not talking about the terraforming that's happening. Every time you look at the sky, it's like, chemtrails everywhere. We're not talking about this situation. Instead, we're talking about, they're sending troops over here. They're sending bombers to North Korea. They're investigating the Russian connection. They'll have us, occupied or preoccupied with bread and circus all day long, and not focus on what's really what the real challenges are in the future, which is the looming Skynet thing. Because if you're worried about the spirit cooking, if you're worried about these Luciferians, and if you're starting to connect the dots and you're starting to understand that, these tech companies like Google and Facebook and the like, they're sporting the mark of the beast. They're promoting Luciferian ideologies, and these people are going to give birth to the beast system. So, this is something that we have to really think about is, are these the types of platforms that we want to promote? Are these the type of platforms that we feel comfortable with controlling all of the technology and so on and so forth? Because they've come out and stated they want to wipe out humanity with their post-human agenda. They've come out and stated that if you want to keep up with technology in the future, you're going to have to merge with the machine. So they're not even trying to hide what their agenda is. It's just that people aren't connecting the dots.
Well, what, though? Many of us are connecting the dots, as you know, in the alternative media and the truth media. And then the reaction to that is, let's have Google shut down natural news and silence Mike Adams. Let's label the whole lot of us fake news so that there can be no discourse about these issues. And I don't think that you're off base at all. I don't think you're overstating it to mention Sodom and Gomorrah. Because, and by the way, don't let me forget to ask you about 5G. Their plan is now to bake us alive. And I know you know a lot about that, so we're going to circle back to that in a second. But Tom DeLay warned us that elements within the DOJ itself want to legalize 12 perversions, including bestiality and sex with children. So, when we talk about this blood cult, when we talk about these people engaging in cannibalism, which I know really defies people's belief, and, when you talk about cannibalism and bathing in blood, look at Kim Kardashian, bathing in blood. Look at Lady Gaga. Reportedly left a bathtub full of blood in one of these hotels she was at. Hollywood, as evidenced by Santa Clarita Diet, is embracing all of this, and they're trying very hard to mainstream it, just like Tom DeLay said the plan is. They're going to mainstream 12 perversions. All right, rant over. Let me ask you about 5G, because I think it's pretty evident now that the plan is to bake us alive with microwave radiation.
Well, I think that the death towers are there as a contingency, as part of the final solution. If I was Dr. Evil, what I would do is set up the chessboard for checkmate. And knowing what I know about the current situation, checkmate would require the rollout of Skynet. I mean, if you look at what happened in Iraq, we sent 400,000 troops to try and squash a country of 60 million people that was basically a third world country. Now imagine trying to do the same thing in our country. It would be virtually impossible. So what they have to do is basically set up a system where they can wipe out as many people as they can, and then mop up with the Skynet Terminators. And so that's what I'm thinking is gonna eventually happen. And a lot of people are focusing on 4G and 5G and stuff like that, and the megawatts of power that are going into these death towers. And there's definitely something to that. But you also have to remember that what's really damaging, or what's really concerning is the frequencies that they can use to basically initiate cardiac and respiratory arrest. They don't need 10 megawatts of power. They don't need a 5G or a 10G system. They just have to change the dial on the cell phone towers as they are to a specific megahertz setting that will resonate, in the affected area to basically cause massive cardiac arrest. And so, I mean, they can do it a bunch of different ways. I mean, if they want to slow cook people through the microwave, towers, they certainly can do that. But in terms of what their final solution is, it's more than likely going to be a combination of these towers with a mop-up crew of the Terminators. At least that's the way I would do it if I was Dr. Evil. But in any case, even if you're not buying that kind of story, well, they would never do that kind of thing. I mean, these towers are dangerous, just as they are in terms of what they're stated as being. They emit electromagnetic radiation, and we know that the long-term effects are harmful to human health. Even a cell phone, which is nothing compared to a cell phone tower, is harmful to your health. They try to suppress a report in California about the dangers of cell phones, and in that report they're saying, be sure not to keep it on in your pocket, be sure not to sleep with the cell phone next to you, be sure not to have it next to your head while you're talking to it. These are dangerous. There's lots of studies that are saying 10 years of prolonged cell phone use is linked to all sorts of diseases. And so we know the damages of just a 2 watt or a 5 watt cell phone. Now imagine these megawatt cell phone towers that are everywhere. I mean, these things are devastating to human health. And never in the history of the world have we had an environment like it is today, with all the cell phones, the radio waves, the television waves, the Wi-Fi, the microwaves, and the like. So I mean, we're basically all like guinea pigs in this experiment that's running away from us, and there's just no doubt that it's having an effect on human health and psychological well-being as well. There's all sorts of links to that, but I mean, obviously you bring up a good point. These 5G towers are going to be even more powerful. They're going to emit even more radiation. It's going to be even more dangerous for people out there, and I certainly wouldn't want to live next to one of them. I certainly wouldn't want this technology going up in my town, but they're not giving you the choice.
Well, that's right, and let me just read this to you because I posted this at SGT Report. Naturalhealth365.com is the source. Action Alert: 5G cellular technology will blanket planetary life with ultra-high microwave frequencies. The 5G revolution is rushing toward us, and it will bring a whole new era of harm from ultra-high microwave frequency radiation. On July 14th, the FCC voted to unleash 5G in the United States, approving sweeping spectrum frontiers rules to make spectrum bands above 24 gigahertz available for 5G. Even though serious health risks are associated with the proliferation of cell phone technology, the attitude of the FCC seems to be full speed ahead and damn the torpedoes. In other words, no part of the country will be safe from ultra-high frequency signals. And Gestapo tactics are being used to silence criticism of 5G technology. They're just going to move forward. It's a very nefarious plan, in my opinion, Ron. It's very malevolent, and the bottom line is they don't care about the negative effects to human health. What does that say? To me, that says this is a eugenics plan as much as anything else.
Well, that's exactly it. They just don't care. I mean, that's what I was thinking. They don't care. They don't care about what kind of radiation you're exposed to. They don't care what's in the water that you drink. They don't care what's in the food that you eat. Most of the food that we eat is illegal in most other countries. They just don't care. They don't care about the people in Flint. They don't care about all the people that are living next to frack wells. They're putting frack wells on school property these days. They just don't care about human health, and they're willing to do anything to make a little extra money. And I think that this is part of the bigger problem, which is the morality problem that we're having these days. I mean, if people were bringing these kind of issues up back in the 1950s, there would have been outrage. People would have been like, "Oh, we need a special investigation. Let's bring this to Congress. Let's care about the people." But these days, they just don't care. But yeah, I mean, it looks like they're waging a war against all of us. That a eugenics program has been deployed, and that the Georgia Guidestones isn't just an idea; it's a plan, and that plan is in effect. And I think that we should all be very concerned about what's going on here, because it looks like they're trying to get rid of us, and it looks like they've already declared war, and we're just waking up to that fact. They've already declared war, and all of this stuff, all of this evil is related to these evil doers, these spirit cookers, these Luciferians, because to them, evil is good. They don't care about human health. And to another extent, or in another way, they also want to basically transform the human person into something that's unnatural. And that's where GMOs come in, because you are what you eat. And so they want you eating things that are unnatural so you become more unnatural. They want you exposed to unnatural radiation levels so that it'll perhaps cause some sort of mutation. But I think, what we should all be concerned about here is the fact that they are trying to take us out, that they are, waging a silent war with silent weapons, and their end game is nefarious, and we should all be looking at this for what it is instead of pretending like it isn't happening. And that's where the mainstream media is playing its role. They're not having us think about these issues that are important. Instead, they want us, chasing the bread and circus. They want us basically, gossiping about their talking points of the day. But I think we need to start thinking outside of the box and start seeing this war for what it is, which is a war on humanity, a war on Christianity. And they don't plan on having any mercy on us. They were already putting us on lists in the last administration. They were already putting Christians and patriots on all sorts of watch lists, red lists, and the like. And so have no doubt about it, their end game is to take us all out and to do it in a way where they can basically rebuild from the ashes and start a new, post-human Luciferian society. And one of the things that we're investigating on our channel right now is this whole idea of terraforming, because it looks like that the climate is indeed changing. And I know a lot of people have reservations about that because they're like, oh, well, climate change is natural. Well, you have to remember that natural climate change events include things like the Permian extinction. The Permian extinction was a natural climate change event, and it wiped out about like 85% of the life on the planet. That's where we get all of the oil, from the Permian basins and things like that. And so what it looks like right now is that they're terraforming the planet to cook us off. And if I were Dr. Evil, what I would do is I would set up base in Antarctica and watch the rest of the people cook off slowly. And then once, they've basically been wiped out, just come back and reconquer, reclaim the planet and rebuild again. And I think that's what's happening right now. But whatever we're dealing with, it's huge. It's mega. It's huge, like the chemtrails. I mean, we're getting images and videos of chemtrails everywhere on this planet, and it's like nothing that's ever been seen before. And so whatever we're up against, it's huge.
Yeah, I want to just say something about chemtrails, too, because as it pertains to the geoengineering that we know is going on, Dane Wigington has dedicated his life to trying to expose this. Those trails with barium and aluminum and all of the microparticles that they're spraying in the sky are trapping heat. They're saying it's to try to deflect the sun's rays to, try to enhance global cooling, but I think what's actually happening is they're trapping heat. They are warming the planet. And, we can dispute what that's all about. We can have a conversation about what that's all about. I can tell you one thing. Taxes to the Rothschilds, paid to the Rothschilds, isn't going to help us fix, quote-unquote, climate change. But, I mean, again, part of a bigger conversation, and the bottom line is that this Illuminati New World Order death cult appears more than willing to sacrifice its own offspring in the name of culling the population. Because these people aren't safe from these things. The people at the top, the elite, if they have children, if they care about their families, why in the world would they be engaged in this stuff, Ron? Because, look, none of us are safe from Fukushima, even if we could do away with everything else. Get rid of the GMOs, heal the planet, say no to 5G, get rid of toxic vaccines. Fukushima is still an ongoing problem, and it's not going away. So it really defies belief. For those of us that are awake and those of us that love our families, those of us that care about humanity, it defies belief. It's almost like the people aligned against us are another species. I mean, because it defies belief that actual human beings would treat other human beings the way these people are treating us.
Well, I think they got an exit plan, and I think this is one of the reasons why they're all quietly migrating to New Zealand, because New Zealand would be the perfect staging area to go to Antarctica. And, if you remember that movie 2012, they didn't build those arcs for the regular people. They were building it for the rich and the elite,
That's right.
At $1 billion, a spot. And I think that this is what their plan is. That's what makes the most sense. It's either that or we're really dealing with some sort of interstellar invasion. And I guess that would bring us back into the stories of what really happened at Roswell. Did they reverse engineer technology from that? Is there some sort of deep, quote-unquote space fleet out there, as seems to be insinuated by the Solar Warden documents or ideas out there? Perhaps. perhaps we are dealing with some sort of
Breakaway civilization.
well, that as well as an interstellar invasion. Because if they did shoot down craft at Roswell, whose craft did they shoot down? Yeah. And what do you think those people think about, losing their craft like that? So, that's something to think about too. But it definitely seems like there is terraforming going on. It definitely seems like they're trying to, basically cook us off the planet like boiling frogs. And it seems like their exit strategy is Antarctica, because that would be the only place where they could basically ride out the storm. And we've also been covering a report called the 2050 report, which basically states that, in fact, the climate is basically in a phase where it's going to start changing dramatically. And this is due to the methane levels that are in the atmosphere.
Right.
And it ends up being a positive feedback loop. As the temperatures rise, more methane is basically released from the permafrost and the deep sea clathrates, which is kind of like frozen methane.
I've talked to Dane Wigington about this, and he's very, very horrified by the potential release of so much methane that it'll cook the planet alive. I mean, he's calling it the extinction level event. And
that's it.
The more the planet warms, the more likely it is for mega releases of methane, and it's terrifying. There's so many things to worry about right now. And you know what? Let's wrap it up with this. Let's talk about the mainstream media briefly, because in the face of Pizzagate, in the face of the WikiLeaks Podesta emails, in the face of the Vault 7 WikiLeaks releases, you still have CNN, even on the day that the Vault 7 releases came out, which told us that the CIA has technology that allows them to hack and leave footprints that would suggest that Russia or another enemy state was responsible for the hack. In the face of that, they stuck with and are still sticking with their Russia hacked the election, Russia is in bed with Trump narrative, which everybody who's paying attention knows is complete BS. And on top of that, you have a guy like Jake Tapper, right? He has a wife named Jennifer. Jennifer told the Washingtonian a year before we even had the word Pizzagate, before the WikiLeaks Podesta emails, before anyone had heard of Comet Ping Pong, that their favorite family restaurant was Comet Ping Pong. Their favorite date night restaurant? Bucks, right down the street. What do you think the chances are of that? And what do you think the chances are that Jake Tapper would ever give a fair shake to the accusations being leveled at the owner of Comet Ping Pong? This is why we can't get real investigations. These people are in it right up to their necks.
Well, and I think it's been orchestrated since the beginning. And I'm pretty suspicious of WikiLeaks. I'm obviously, a big supporter of the whole idea of getting information out there and trying to make the world a better place and things like that. But I kind of feel like it's a controlled narrative as well, as a controlled opposition as well. And the information that's coming from there is information that they want us to know about. And I think that's why, there's these insinuations or innuendos about Pizzagate beforehand. I think this is why they've come out with the CIA leaks now, because they really haven't told us anything that we didn't know before. I mean, who didn't think that they weren't listening to you through your phone? Who thinks that they weren't able to cover their tracks? I mean, this is in a sense like spelling it out in black and white, but they haven't really told us anything that we didn't know already. And in the process, we're basically talking about those talking points instead of talking about the looming Skynet issue, the terraforming issue, and the whole issue of that it's, in fact, Luciferians that are running the society. So, in each one of these releases, they're basically telling us what we already knew. We already knew that Hillary was crooked. We already knew these people were Luciferians. We already knew that the deep state had the capability of basically, reading all of our emails. But what's important here is that one of the reasons that they come out with this information is basically to do damage to the quote unquote deep state. And here's where things get kind of funky, and people can either agree or disagree, but hopefully it'll give you something to think about. If there is an interstellar insurgency, if we are dealing with some sort of takeover from a different planet, the only thing that's going to be protecting us from a secular point of view is a deep state compartmentalized secret program with highly advanced weaponry and the like. And if we start, and it's impossible to get access to these programs, I mean, this is why they're compartmentalized and the like. And so if all of a sudden, they start bringing, trouble to these types of establishments and start breaking down the barriers, that's going to let infiltrators go in even deeper. And I know that kind of sounds convoluted and crazy, which in a certain sense it does. But in that contingency, that's very much that would be very much the problem. And I think this is one of the reasons why 9/11 happened, because all of a sudden after 9/11, we had a Department of Homeland Security that became the umbrella for all of the intelligence agencies and the like. And they were basically trying to decompartmentalize these agencies so that it would be easier to navigate, easier to get information, easier to infiltrate into these different classified projects. And I think that everybody should remember, what happened to Hillary on September 11th. I mean, she totally collapsed. 2 hours later, she came out of this clone clinic as if nothing ever happened. And I think that might be a bigger clue to what's going on than people realize, because one of the things that would happen in a sort of interstellar insurgency would be a scenario similar to the movie Oblivion, where they would infiltrate using clones or people that would look like us. And perhaps this is why people are speculating, are there shape-shifting cloaking technology things out there and the like. But if we're dealing with an insurgency, if we're dealing with terraforming of the planet, if we're dealing with hostile actors from a different planet, the only thing that's protecting us right now, again, from a secular point of view, is deep state compartmentalized programs with very high tech weaponry. And I think that this is something that we kind of have to be mindful of, because if WikiLeaks and the like are basically tools of the dark side, and they're being used to infiltrate these programs, this might explain why we're seeing what we're seeing. I mean, that's just an idea. There are other possibilities. Of course, it could very well be that everything is the way they say it is. But, generally speaking, from our point of view, it never seems to be like that. It never seems to be like things are the way they say they are.
No, it's always the opposite, right? I mean, it's
hold
always...
on. But I think this is also why we're also seeing a lot of the fake NASA pictures, and this is why we're seeing the flat Earth psyop. They want people focusing on the flat Earth, and I know this gets controversial, and there'll be a lot of people that'll be losing their minds as soon as they hear that. But I just want to state, there are two different star maps for the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. They're completely different, and that couldn't happen on a flat planet. So there has to be a different explanation for what we're seeing in terms of the fake NASA pictures and the like. And one of them might very well be the fact that they're hiding some sort of quote-unquote deep space fleet and all sorts of other activity that's going on up there. So, I mean, it's interesting. I think it's more interesting thinking about that and thinking about the things that are on Fox or NBC or CNN, and I do apologize for running on like that, but go ahead there, Sean.
No, you raise very good points, and this isn't the feel-good conversation of the year, guys. I mean, we've done here is present some of the issues that face humanity, and they're very serious issues. It seems like each one more serious than the previous, and humanity at this point, Ron, has its back up against the wall. We know what their plan is. You're right. The Georgia Guidestones laid it all out, right? Keep humanity in perpetual balance with nature at what, 500 million people? What does that mean? That means 6 billion people have to perish. And these conversations will not be had by the Washington Post or the New York Times or CNN or Fox News or Good Morning America, right? None of these serious conversations happen anywhere but in the alternative media, the truth media. And you're going to want to check out Ron's daily broadcast. Ron, you simulcast that. Don't you put that up on YouTube Live?
Well, YouTube, it's kind of difficult because they like to take away our live broadcasting privileges. But we're mostly on Facebook. You can find us most of the time on Facebook/STF News. That's where we do our live broadcasts, and we tend to mirror that show on the YouTube channel. But we've got quite a few years worth of archives on the YouTube channel. We started that before the Facebook channel, so we've got a bunch of stuff everywhere. But if you want to check out the live broadcast, be sure to check us out on Facebook/STF News.
Yeah, and the YouTube channel is Ron Johnson. You guys can get his videos at YouTube, live or not. He puts them all up there. And Ron, you're a very interesting guy, and that's why I post your stuff at thephaser.com, because I think you're over the target on 99% of this stuff, including the potentiality of a breakaway civilization or warring factors in the solar system, that some of which may be benevolent, but many of them may be malevolent. Boy, we could just go on and on here for another hour, but I guess we'll wrap it up and we'll get Ron back on in the future. Ron, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for having me, Sean.
Well, I very much appreciate it. And guys, thank you for tuning in. If you want some information that's counter to the official talking points of the State Department as delivered by CNN, then you're going to want to check us out at sgtreport.com, thephaser.com, and thelibertymill.com for real news 24/7. God bless.
Yeah, there's quite a few things intersecting on March 15th, and I want to stress that we're not trying to be alarmist here. We're not saying that the markets are going to crash on the 15th. It's just that undeniably there are a number of things on the calendar that are going to occur that day.